It was a night of two halves last night, with the US dollar initially appreciating against most of the global currencies. This is on the back of some news articles out of the Wall Street Journal around how the Federal Reserve might regulate or stimulate the US economy, which is definitely struggling into the back end of this year. What we're seeing is that the Federal Reserve might actually temper how they would influence the economy, and this has been seen as a good thing by the market. Unfortunately, later in the day, we did see some economic data that came out that gave a quick reversal. Now, this was initially the US housing data. Housing has struggled over recent months as they've lost their stimulus package that the Federal Reserve had given them, and we've seen just a general weakness in that market, followed by the consumer confidence number. Now, this was much weaker than the market had expected for the September run, and we really do see that the consumer is struggling into the back end of this year. The US dollar then started to sell off against all those currencies, and it's been a good night again for the Kiwi as a result. So how does this lead through to the interest rate market? Well, we saw some weakness in the US Treasuries. They really are struggling on the back of that consumer data. But we are seeing a bit of a decoupling between what's happening in the US and happening down here in New Zealand and Australia. Interest rates here have gone lower over the last little bit, but only slightly compared to the impact that they've seen over in the US. So rates, yes, lower this morning. We could see them off 2 to 3 basis points, but we're generally being supported by the good news stories that are coming out of the Australian economy. So from an interest rate perspective, we do not see them much lower than we have right at the moment. The commodity market still is remaining pretty strong out there. We've seen gold hit yet another record high overnight at US dollars 1,308 an ounce. Incredible result for that as people pile into that as a safe haven nowadays. But what we're going to focus on here in New Zealand will be the next global dairy trade auction. That's next Tuesday, and we do believe that will remain relatively positive as the season ends. So the focus still remains on a positive commodity story for New Zealand.